All right, guys, welcome back to another New Legacy podcast. We are in a secret hiding place in Tennessee. I can't tell you what it is, but you could fit 100 football fields here.
Basically 100 acres, that's for sure. Yep.
Yeah. This is it's a crazy experience because you have a barn here that. Oh, actually, hold on. This is Ryan Garland, private equity Paradyme, big deal. Okay, so he has a barn and a home that's building inside of it.
Yeah, so the barn, it's about 6,000 square feet as far as the footprint.
Yeah.
And the barn was built back in the late 1800s. It originally was a tobacco barn that moved to a hay barn. And then what we did is we went in there and re-engineered the building. And we basically built a 2,700 square foot barn, like a barn dominium.
Yeah.
And it's fully insulated. It looks complete. It's almost like you're walking off the streets of New York and you walk into like a cool building and it's super modern.
Inside.
That's what we did. Yeah. So it's full 3 bedrooms, 2 full bath, movie theater, floor to ceiling tile, all glass. Modern finishings. You can even open up a window and feed the horses, in the morning. So we try to make it fun for friends and family. Feed the horses. We have roughly about 20 horses. So in the mornings, hopefully the horses are right there by the barn. You can open up the window and feed the horses right through the window. So it's kind of a cool experience.
Gotcha. That's wild.
Yeah.
Tell us your origin story. Where'd you come from? You didn't just come out of nowhere yesterday.
No, man.
Where are you from?
I'm from Riverside, California. Mm-hmm. My father now he's a retired LA County sheriff. My father raised me.
Yeah.
My mom left when I was about 1.5. Mm-hmm. And my father didn't remarry until I was in my early 20s. So my father raised me, and I like to say my father raised me with kind of a heavy hand, but he really demanded a lot of respect and for me to carry myself with integrity. Yeah. And to this day, my father's still my best friend. And that's really kind of how I started, this business. Was I didn't want to follow his footsteps, and I had an opportunity to get into the lending side. Mm-hmm. And my father always told me, even though being a police officer will put food on the table, the politics are getting worse as time goes on. And I would love for you to be able to not have to strap a gun to your hip to provide for your family. So think outside the box.
Yeah. And you told us a little bit of your story in the beginning when we were at the Havasu shooting the halo for your boat.
Yep.
And the Paradyme storage property there. Yeah. And you said that growing up, you guys, didn't have much after, paying the bills. So I want to expand on that.
Yeah, so my father had to pay alimony, and we had a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house in San Bernardino.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a really good place of San Bernardino either, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I think everyone has their stories, but yeah, so after bills were paid, he had about $150 left for the whole month for us to eat.
Yeah.
And so even during the holidays and Christmas and so forth, my Christmas presents a lot of the times were if anybody remembers, at Stater Brothers, there were these little 99 cents or 89 cents or 69 cents, I don't remember what they were, but you can make these little airplanes and you could put a rubber band on them and wind up the propeller and then let it go and it'd fly. And that was kind of my Christmas presents, and I got a lot of them. But I didn't know when I was a young kid. Not until I got older I realized kind of how it really was for me when I was growing up.
Yeah. So to where you are right now, you're managing big teams, big money.
Yeah.
And it took a lot. So on this podcast, we're going to talk more about, the family, the faith, and the fitness, and the regimen you have to put yourself through to be able to run the operation you're running.
Sure.
And also how to maintain, and, I want you to give some advice to whoever's watching this, the young men, the young women out there that's starting their business or someone that's rebounding back from a bankruptcy.
Sure.
How can they pick themselves up, move forward, move past? And, you've been in a situation where ups and downs before. And, it's not like you've been in this industry for last couple of years. You've been doing this for 20 years plus.
Yep. It's been for 20 years.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I got a couple questions we're going to run through. And I think just from your perspective, you're going to help a lot of people.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I'm hoping I can.
All right. So it's the foundations, the relationships wise, right? So not everyone is born into a perfect family. I don't think anyone ever is born into a perfect family.
Right.
And I want you to help expand on that because relationship is more important than, we all know relationships more important than money or status or so.
Absolutely.
But to you, like, you know, growing up, like with the relationship that you have with your family, did you have like, you know, you had a good relationship with your father? Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so I think you nailed it. I mean, not everybody has, you know, grew up with like a perfect family. In fact, I don't think anyone really has. Everyone I've ever really talked to, you know, they may have showed that it was, you know, perfect in the, you know, at the surface level, but as you drill down, you realize there was actually a lot of hardship there.
Yeah.
And I think that's just family in general. So, I think I don't really wear a lot of like the poor me stuff. So I don't really go into like the hardship stuff very often, but I'm going to share with you kind of my perspective. And I had to prepare myself for this podcast because I knew you're going to pull it out of me. But so I'll kind of Tarantino it. I'm going to go back and forth a little bit.
Yeah.
So I come from a broken home.
Yeah.
I have been married once before. I'm married a second time. And so obviously I have that under my belt, which I'm not proud of as far as a divorce. I had a son from a previous, he's now 15.
Yeah.
And I'll share about that a little, you know, later down the road. But I didn't really realize kind of the nature of how I was raised or the hardship I had until I got older and I had kids for myself. And then really kind of being the sole provider, you really kind of have to dig deep and you have to look inward a lot. When you're really, again, you're the sole provider, you have to provide. So my father, though, his family is actually really tight. My aunts and uncles are really cool. I have really amazing cousins on that side. I spent a lot of time with them. I would say that I spent more time with my cousins than I did with actually friends, you know, unless I was in school. And I really enjoyed that a lot. And to this day, I'm very close to a lot of my cousins on that side. But my father, you know, had kind of a unique situation because my father was the most judged because he was the youngest boy out of 4 boys and 2 girls. And my father was the only one that wasn't married for so many years. All the rest of my family members, my aunts and uncles, were married. So he had kind of like a lot of judgment casted on him, right? You know, go find a woman, have her take care of you. And my old man, being a cop, trying to date is really difficult, especially when you're trying to elevate and then you're trying to raise a young boy. You know, I know what it's like to have to try to raise your kids on your own. So it's definitely hard. So my father, I think, did a really good job for someone who was so hard and rough around the edges. He was also very loving and nurturing.
Yeah.
And he had to kind of play both roles. And I give my dad so much love and respect for that because I'm a man and it's hard for me to shut down being tough and trying to be loving and nurturing and what have you. And he didn't have a soft woman to help him figure it out. You know, he had to try to figure it out on his own. And just like any parent, they're not perfect. You're going to have tons of conviction of things that you could have done differently or better. And my father, to this day, as he's gotten older, he sits back and thinks about all the things he could have done differently. And I think, again, we all do if you're a parent for any given time. But, you know, my family, for the most part, you know, was pretty supportive on my father's side. Yeah. But there was a lot of things that, you know, as I got older in high school, that became really, really, really problematic. I actually started hanging out with the wrong crowd, right? And that's when I saw a big division between my father and I start happening. And then my father started becoming very physical because he wasn't able to kind of guide me with conversation. Now I'm turning into a little bit more of a man thinking I know everything. And so he became a little bit more physical, where I think a lot of times as a police officer, you automatically go into like negative mindset. Yeah. Because as a police officer, everybody hates you all day. Right. And so when he comes home, he kind of carried his work home with him. Yeah. And so he would then use me as the punching bag. And as time went on and as you get older, and now that I'm, 40, I could tell how I wear my work home a lot too. And you just kind of get tired of the same old stuff. So I could see how, he was unable to check out by the time he came through those doors, And so it became very verbal, very aggressive. And for a long time, him and I weren't close. It was until, I ended up having my son and I saw how much he was trying to make up for lost time using my son as that tool. Yeah. And I couldn't be more thankful because I needed help at the time. And so I see my dad's heart now for who he is. And I don't judge him on his imperfections or his, the things that he's done, right? I really judge him based on the man he is today. And he really is a totally different man. And I'm very thankful for that.
Can you explain or expand on how important it is to have like you are as a father, to be a good father, because that imprints
Yeah.
into the next generation. And if you don't do it right, there's going to be a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of like family separation. It's going to be a lot of hurt into the world because, right now we're seeing like a lot of single home like parents, single mom
Yep.
home, and they're raising some of the wildest kids, and those are going to be adults pretty soon.
Yep.
And they don't have a blueprint or something to refer to. It's like, oh, I should raise my kids like this, be the good example.
Yeah.
And they just slop on themselves, and, they're raising some wild troublemakers.
Yeah. And I think things are getting worse, in regards to how kids are being raised. I forgot the saying, soft men creates, hard times, hard men create soft times, that type of stuff. I think we're honestly in that weak men times and era. And I think, so I'm going to be a little more bullish when it comes to fatherhood than I think most.
Yeah.
And again, it could stem a little bit from my father being so strong, but I have to kind of be thankful for the things that I've been through with him, because I truly don't think I'd be the man today that I am, and without his, strength and guidance and him being hard on me and require me to be honest and basically beat the integrity into me in essence, and I think in many ways that's something that I'm trying to bring to the table, but not be as hard. I think everybody does that too. They see how their parents, parented them, and they're going to adjust according to, the things they believe in or don't believe in. And so right now being a father is very difficult because you have so much technology at kids' fingertips.
Yeah.
And they judge other lifestyles by, their life and other kids and what they get and what they have and how easy they have it and so on and so forth. So they kind of pull that in. And because they have so much more exposure to that, you have to spend more time educating them on what's right and wrong. And, I think kind of like the godly aspect has been lost in schools. We know how this is all going. And I think a lot of that hasn't been implemented in our kids' lives as much. So there's really no blueprint or foundation for these kids to lean on.
Yeah.
And so you really kind of have to work it in a way as a father, kind of lead in a way where you're worldly, biblically, and try to become friends with them rather than scare them or make them, fear you to get them motivated or to get them to react in a certain manner. But anyways, as a father, I think for me, I'm very bullish in regards to what I expect from my boys and my kids. I have 2 boys, and those boys basically are the best kids I've ever had. I've ever seen. Of course, I'm going to be biased, but they are really good kids. My oldest son just got a 4.0 GPA, plays baseball, D1 level baseball. He's a catcher. My youngest son, he is I think we call him the genius in the family. We think he's going to take over Tesla one day. He's just so smart.
Yeah.
But they're very easy. And it's not that they fear me. I've become friends with them, and I've talked in their ear so much about life and people's habits and just humanity and how people operate and how they think. And because of my lifestyle, my son's been hated. I think you heard him talk about that the other day.
Yeah.
My dad does well, and so some certain people talk crap on that. And I'm like, welcome to the club. No matter what you do, how much money you make, it doesn't matter. You're going to be hated for something. And so I got into their ears much earlier on, I think, than some other parents did, trying to teach them that this world will eat you up and just destroy your mind and control your sanity and destroy your confidence. And so I've been able to get my kids focused on one thing that they're good at, that they get praised for, that they can lean on for their confidence forever.
Right.
My son, baseball. Yeah. He's so good at baseball. His entire world, when things get tough, it goes back to baseball. I want to go to baseball. I want to do this. I want to do that. They don't want to do anything else besides baseball, right? Because again, when times get tough, you're going to revert back to the things you're good at or that you feel comfortable in doing, and he feels that. So he's got a backbone there, and that's where I come in even more by also sharing with him, baseball isn't everything. What if you get hurt?
Yeah.
What about your education? What about that? And so they really do. And now Shane, my oldest son, he's been hurt. He just broke his thumb catching. I mean, the kid broke his wrist 2 years in a row riding dirt bikes. I mean, he's always hurt. So I always tell him now, don't lean on baseball as your main career. It's always good to have another idea of where you want to go. So if this doesn't work, you have a plan B.
Right.
And be just as bullish at going after plan B as you do plan A.
Yeah.
And they are, as far as my oldest. And so that's really rewarding, because now I know there's a time in every parent's life that you can look at your child and be like, they're going to be all right. You kind of go, and I've had that with him when he was about 8 or 9.
Yeah.
And so all I know is, if God forbid I leave this earth tomorrow, do I believe they're going to be fine? Absolutely. And I believe that they're going to look back at dad and be like, or look back and go, let's say I'm gone, would dad approve of this? And they won't do it if they know I wouldn't. So really it comes down to communication with your kids, but not pulling punches and being soft. Like, tell them exactly how this world works. Tell them the people that have ripped you off or hurt you. Yeah. Tell them about the people that you've let in close to you that hurt you the most. It's always the people that you let in closest that hurt you the most. And I share that with my kids. I don't hold any punches from them. And I think that's been a huge play by not, of course I shelter them in certain things, but there are things that I want them to know that how the world works, so they can maneuver and play chess and control their mind. And that's kind of the fatherhood that I'm trying to lead into. Yeah.
I think that's like, speaking to Shane, like, he's like very go, go, go. He has the same personality as you do. And he's like, oh, what's this? I want to do it now. Boom. Right? Like, there's no like overthinking, just overanalyzing. It's just action. And what I'm seeing, that it's that aspect of your family growing up, and that goes into like how you lead your company, and it goes into how you operate with other people too as well. Like, I don't know if you guys know, but he's in the middle of like a $5 to $10 million deal right now, and he's like stopping it to do a podcast.
I even told everybody, hey, leave me alone. I got to do a podcast.
And it's like, from my point of view, I'm, just going up the chain right now, and I'm seeing like, man, it's like, there's a lot of pressure, but the way you handle it's way different. The way you handle it is different than most people I see. You're very calm at it. 'Cause I know, like, intellectually, you're like, oh, if I freak out, no freak out, and the problem becomes 10 times worse. So that's what I'm seeing. Like, I'm observing, just, staying at the ranch here with you, even though it's hella cold.
Right.
But, yeah, it's like, I've never met another CEO like you, where you have big problem, big issues, big projects, but you're super calm about it. And you just like, how do you do that?
So I think it actually comes down to having faith in yourself. So everything has always worked out the way it's supposed to. Yeah. And even if things got bad for me in the past, I'm thankful for those times, because I wouldn't be where I'm at today without those hardships. And there's that saying that says a skilled sailor doesn't build his skills in smooth seas. A skilled sailor builds his skills in rough seas. Yeah. And that's really kind of been me, at the end of the day, is have never had it easy, man. I just haven't. And I had to kind of power through the things that were in my way. Yeah. And there was always things in your way. But the one thing I've learned is, once I started believing in myself more, even with my family, when you lead, a true leader is someone that can be calm and collected and think things through, and then make decisions and lead people. And when it works out, they become bigger believers. So what happens with me is I've proven myself to my team so many times, time after time, that everything they say, I say. So if you were to talk to, let's say, Amanda, she's like, everything Ryan says is going to happen, always happens. Yeah. Brady's going to say the same thing. Ryan, the reason I'm going to follow you is because you've always made it work. And these are people that are relying on a paycheck in this market.
But it's a tough market.
And this is a tough market. And there's a lot of companies shutting their doors, and not a lot of people are talking about it, but it is. And that's the component. It's not just maybe who I am as a character. It's also how I handle hardship that people judge me by. Yeah. So I know that things will always work out. So when things blow up or hit the fan and everyone's freaking out, I kind of go, okay, let me listen, 2 ears and 1 mouth. Let me listen to what everyone's perspective is. Let me hear the problems. Let me think this through. And a lot of the problems that I will continue to have is things I've already gone through. So there's not much I haven't dealt with at this point that I probably can't handle. So that also helps too, to stay calm. But I really enjoy staying the leader. So you have to have that discipline not to jump down everyone's throats or freak out like everybody else is, because then everyone goes, well, who's leading the ship if no one's really, is focused and knows how to handle it. So I enjoy kind of everybody coming to me with trying to come up with a solution.
Yeah.
And then they come to me with an idea and I go to them, well, it may not be, I've dealt with this before. How about we try this? And it always works out. Right. So I think at the end of the day, even with my family, even my wife, as an example, I'll buy a boat or I'll buy a house.
Yeah.
And she'll be like, why did you do that? Well, every single time after about a month or two, she's like, I'm glad you did. I really like that. So it's kind of like that whole concept. It's always times with boats. I always buy, even like people in my company, they're like, Ryan's buying a boat. I can feel it. He's going to do something.
Yeah.
When you buy the boat, everyone goes, oh, why'd you buy the boat? Okay, now it makes sense. I totally am glad you bought the boat, you know? And that's my wife all day long. Well, that's my kids too. Like when I bought this place, they're like, Dad, why'd you buy something all the way out here? I'm like, one day you'll understand. Now, all holidays, during the summer, are we going out there? Can I bring my friends? I want to go out there. And everybody now is like the best thing you've ever done. So it's true. You just have to kind of believe in yourself and have faith that everybody will eventually see the benefits, even though you may see them before they do. And really, to be honest with you, I prayed for that though. You know, God has chosen me as a father and as a husband and as a leader. And I'm not only leading this family, I'm also leading 400 other families.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not including my employees and people that rely on me to make good decisions every day. So I've also been around a lot of people that have made decisions on emotions, and that's bitten a lot. And I've done that too, though. I have to admit, I've made decisions based on emotion, and I've always made the wrong decision. So a lot of times I'll write emails and I won't send it. I'll wait a couple of days. I'll leave it in my draft. I'll look back at it. I'll tailor it. I'll adjust it. I'll do it again. I don't really feel I'm going to sleep on it again. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to call people that I look up to and tell them my issues, my problems. You know, having a little advisory board is priceless. You know, having a community of men that are also kind of in that same position that have been through that is also important. And so a lot of the decisions I'm making aren't really just my gut. Sometimes I do make gut decisions, but I am very slow to react when things hit the fan because I try to look at all the right things, put everything on the table before I make a decision. So hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah. Like, so for the young Ryan, when you first started, like, give us a little bit of that. Like, you know, obviously you do your high school, do your, middle school, stuff like that.
Yeah. So
like who were you in high school?
Oh man,
if you could
you know what, dude, if you look at Shane, skinny, always trying to work out, trying to get bigger, got bullied because that's why I got into bodybuilding, man, to be honest with you.
Really?
I was so skinny in high school, played sports, but I never really took root in anything there because it was just, I was so as my father, you know, as he worked, and was I started wanting to work too. I wanted other things. So in high school, I started working at a very young age, from detailing cars in high school to, I got a job at a civil engineering firm called Albert A. Webb Associates out of Riverside. They were the largest civil engineering firm at the time. And I was like, literally, I had big old hooped earrings and like black spiked hair and like pants down to my ass. And, you know, I got a job there. Long story short, I ended up getting a job there. I was moving for them all summer. And then the office manager came up to me and offered me a job and said, you're a leader out of these other 4 guys. I'd love to hire you. And basically she made me a gopher. I was like emptying butts out of ashtrays and putting paper in the, you know, printers and taking executives' cars to get washed. I mean, it was like low level gopher stuff, man. Yeah. And so while I was in high school, I looked at that as a career. And so I was really pumped to get out of school. So when I got out of school, I got a full-time job there. And I started as a draftsman and moved my way up into being a survey technician for the survey department. And I oversaw 13 crews with 3 people on there, and they go out and stake where all the buildings are built. And in Ontario, for anybody who knows California, on the 15 freeway in Ontario, on the east side of the freeway, there's a huge UPS building. I actually designed that entire layout and actually had them stake it. Oh, wow. And then a lot of the homes that were built in Marietta back in early 2000s, you know, that were early 2000s, let's call mid 2005 through 2008, 9, 10 even. We did a lot of the civil engineering work for that. So Pulte homes, KB homes, all that fun stuff. Anyway, so I loved that. That's kind of where I was going to go. And so I had always kind of got into wanting to make money. So even, right out of high school, I started making money over my friends, I had a nicer car, but I was putting in the work. I was working 60 hours right out of high school.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, but I really enjoyed it. But again, this was kind of like a door that was open that I saw could be very fruitful compared to my father, and I wanted to stay in it, and it was safe. I don't have to strap a gun to my hip, and I can sit in a cubicle. But quickly after a few years of that, I realized I am not a cubicle guy.
Yeah.
Ain't gonna happen. So yeah, growing up and kind of getting into the corporate world and getting into kind of like the mindset of business, I started at a very young age getting into civil engineering even before I was out of high school. So I was around business-like people that were very educated, master's degrees, PhDs, guys that are basically, designing and engineering, buildings down to all the civil work, roads and bridges with, big, government contracts and so forth. So I was around high-level conversations even in high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy. So you got your entrepreneur start very, very early. And then when did you went on your own journey and start your own company?
So I started, I'll give you the backstory on this one, man. So I was such a nerd, man. So I got to totally just be honest here. So, all right. So when I was getting tired of the civil engineering world, I really was, because I was just like, it's just too much pressure at such a young age. I was like 18, 19. No, 20. Forgive me, 20, going into 21. And I met some guys in Lake Havasu on a boat, right, where I go boating all the time. And there's a place called Copper Canyon where all the girls flash their boobies. Okay. And you throw either a Coors Light or a Bud Light at the time at them, or you give them beads and they just flash you, right? Yeah. And then my father introduced that to me at a very young age, by the way. So, and I ended up meeting some friends out there, and they did not know how to drive a boat. They made a bunch of money. They're kind of from the same area. They're a little older, but they did lending, conventional mortgage, subprime lending.
Yeah.
And I ended up becoming friends with them, jumping on their boat, partying with them. I knew how to drive the boat, so I stayed sober while they chased the chicks. You know what I mean? So it was really pretty cool. But I ended up becoming really good friends with a guy by the name of Justin, and call him JT. And he was just such a cool guy. Still to this day, I consider him one of my closest friends. Yeah. And what an amazing human. Well, he introduced me to this, and he'd go golfing, and we'd do stuff, and he saw I'm working 60 hours a week, and he's going to the club 4 days a week, going to work at 10 in the morning, leaving at 2, making 30, 40 grand a month. I'm like, dude, I'm going to school full-time or part-time, working full-time. I have no life, no girlfriend. I literally have no life. And he's like, dude, you literally can have a life. Come over here and just quadruple your money. So I took a 2-week vacation from the civil engineering firm. Went over there and literally got in a call center, man. I'm talking earphones, headphones, dialer, and I started dialing for dollars, man. And I ended up refinancing or going through a refinance process for a handful of guys and made like $7 grand my first week.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, okay, that is like almost double what I make, a month in the civil engineering side. I'd take home maybe $5 grand. I'm making $7 grand a week. I'm like, okay. So I went back the second week, made another $7 grand. I'm like, I made 14 grand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And where I'm making $5 grand a month, and as an engineer, I'm like, okay, I could do this part-time and go to school full-time. And that's what I wanted to do. So I ended up going to the owners of my company and asking them, hey, I'm going to go to school full-time, and I'd love to be able to have an opportunity to come back when I'm done with school, but this is what I'm going to do. And they said, absolutely, you always have a place to call home. So I went over there and started lending, and I was making so much money, I dropped out of school. I got to a point I was making $60, $70, $80, $100,000 a month.
Oh, wow.
Engineers, the civil engineers are making maybe 110 back in the day at that time. So
a year.
A year. Yeah. And I'm making 100 grand a month. Right. And as I continue to put in more work and my network is growing, I'm making more money. And then I ended up meeting a group that owned several Prudentials, and I was the in-house lender and the only body for the lender inside a place in Rancho Cucamonga where all these high-end homes are being built. So these are $2-3 million homes. Toll Brothers were building homes, and when you buy one of their $2 million houses, you get an E-Class Mercedes with it. I mean, it was like a big deal back then. Yeah, you can't do that anymore, but that's what was happening back then. So I had all kinds of people coming to me for finance. And dude, I was racking 70 grand every time I closed a deal. I mean, and I was closing 20, 30 deals a month.
Damn.
I'm the only lender with 300 agents that were proactive, and everybody was making money before the 2008 crash. It's just the way it was. So, and you can pretty much, if you had a heartbeat, you can get a loan. That's what we used to call it. You know, if you got a heartbeat, you're getting a loan basically back then. Like so if you ever saw that movie Big Short, or if you haven't, watch it. I'm that guy that was all polished and like totally a douchebag at the bar, loan officer, right? So, but I had a little more polish than that. But anyway, so when 2008 crashed, and if you want me to go into that story, it's another longer story, but in 2008 crash, I had just opened up my own shop in Riverside, and my father had got hit on duty and broke his back, and at one time was told he wasn't going to walk. So I wasn't ever going to walk again. So I ended up buying a house next to him, literally like a handful of houses away from him, and then moving my whole company from Rancho back to Riverside, opening up an office, bringing on a new staff, the whole 9 yards. And within 6 months, the market crashed.
Damn.
Yeah. So, and I had just bought this big house, of course, at the height of the market, right? The whole 9 yards. And that was kind of the beginning of me creating the Paradyme movement, because at that time, I ended up rubbing elbows with a high net worth individual that basically gave me $30 million a month to start working on workout turnarounds or REOs or defaults. He just wanted me to figure out a way to put $30 million into real estate, first trust deed mortgages, hard money lending. It didn't matter. He wanted $30 million out. So I was very lucky to build a relationship with a high net worth family office. In fact, the guy was from China. He had a whole entire basically an entire team that were data analysts that were watching everything that was going on with the U.S. real estate, and they saw this coming. Oh, wow. So they came out about 6 months before, started getting the lay of the land. They had been, looking for guys like me that were boots on the ground, relationship driven with agents and so forth. And he ended up approaching me and saying, I'm going to give you $30 million a month. Keep putting it out. Right. So that was the launch of the Paradyme brand, was in August of 2009. And at that time, I was doing short sell leasebacks. So where people were buying home, or people were losing their homes, right? And they were, going into foreclosure. What we were doing is we were short selling their homes for them. We would come in and buy the house at a discount and then lease it back to the family. And it was really a pretty cool movement. So I'll share about more of that if you want me to. But that's really what started the Paradyme brand. And ever since then, I had been pretty much self-employed to start the Paradyme.
Because you kind of saved them. And let them stay in their house. So
one of my old mentors told me a long time ago, if you can make it, you will make more money. Very much same thing that Tony Robbins says. If you can, you will make more money if it's a win-win for every party.
Yeah.
And I totally agreed with that. So one of the things that I realized is during the 2008 crash, there was a lot of divorces. The number one lead to divorce is financial hardship. And so there was a lot of divorces going on. A lot of people couldn't pay for their kids, college tuition. I mean, the list just goes on of the hardships when things financially are going on.
Even food.
Medical. I mean, the list goes on, right? So when I was like, what if we can buy these? So what happened was I had a buddy that was working at a loan modification company. And SB 95, I think is what it was, a legal term for collecting upfront fees as an attorney for a real estate transaction that did not happen to go through. Well, what was happening is a bunch of these modification attorneys are getting disbarred because they're charging upfront fees and they weren't getting the homeowner any type of, cushion, safety, or helping them in any way. So either they have to pay them their money back or, you get enough complaints, you're getting disbarred. So anyways, I ended up going to them and saying, why don't we do this? Why don't I go to all these attorneys that can't get modifications but can convert to short sales? Well, the whole idea is to keep these people in their homes. That's why they're going for a modification. They want to stay in their home. Where else are they going to go? So, and they're upside down. So why don't we do a short sell? We'll put an offer in at 70 cents on the dollar. And if we can buy the home at a discount, knowing that the market's in a depreciating, aspect, if we go in there and buy them at 70 cents on the dollar, let's just lease back the home to the homeowner, the existing homeowner, and give them the option to stay in their home. Yeah. And man, it took off. Now, as you can imagine, not only did we had like vans with banker boxes coming from attorneys dropping off hundreds of files a day. Yeah. And we had 30 to 50 million a month that I had to put out. And it was so hard to keep up. But, when it's a win-win for everybody, that's really kind of how we got into the private sector was, again, short sales and leasing them back to the homeowners. And what we did is we gave them a 36-month option to buy back the home. Because at the time, Obama released the Forgiveness Act, which allowed you to have your debt forgiven if you short sell, not go to REO or foreclosure.
Yeah.
So 36 months after a short sale, you can go with an FHA loan and buy a house again and get a conventional mortgage or FHA. So what we did is we said, okay, look, we're going to buy your house at 70 cents on the dollar of as is value, which it's already depreciated, right? Because the market crashed.
Yeah.
And at the end of 36 months, if you're in a financial position to be able to buy the property back, we'll give you the option to buy it back.
Wow.
And so now I gave my investor with all that money a 3-year term, cash flow off rents. They, in essence, have ownership of the home. So they have real assets encumbered. They have a huge portfolio of assets. And then at the end, if someone wants to buy back the property, they buy back for whatever the value is at the time. And now you gave people hope again.
Yeah.
You kept them in their house, kept their kids good, kept their marriages intact. And they have the ability and hope to buy back a property after having, losses like that. You just, all that hard work you put in to buy your house and keep your house, and now you have to, you have to lose it to be able to get the option to be able to buy it back one day. That's like, it's like a godsend to so many people.
Yeah.
So not only did I get so many vans with banker boxes from attorneys, but I had real estate agents using us as kind of like a straw buyer to go out and start picking up listings, and they were double ending. So they would pick up the listing and they represent us to buy. So these now real estate agents are jumping on the bandwagon too, right? So it was very fruitful and we just exploded. But over time, policy changed and rules and regulations changed. And so we weren't able to do the short sale leasebacks. We got into more REOs and fix and flips. And so that kind of shotgunned us to where we are today.
Yeah. And like, now you guys are doing crazy project. You got the Europa looking like Disneyland Europe.
$185 million winery in Cali, yeah.
Yeah, like it's crazy. It looks like Disneyland.
Yeah.
And then you got the barn caves coming.
Yep.
Havasu area. It's gonna
The
be
new product, yep.
very luxurious. And the $100 million funds and a lot more other crazy projects. So you go from like trying to save families to now doing these crazy like dream projects.
Yeah. What we did was, it's kind of crazy because I've always been kind of just one of these guys that just doesn't stop moving forward.
Yeah.
And I think really, to be honest with you, I've looked back and I knew we were going to have this podcast. I'm like, one of the biggest nuggets I wanted to kind of throw out there was, one of the things about me that I've realized is the more that I've been wronged, the harder I keep pushing forward. And I've been wronged by so many, right? And we all can say that. But instead of me putting my head in the sand or playing the poor me game, I just kept pushing forward. And not in a bad way. It's just kind of like, you know what? I believe in myself. I know I could do this. I was kind of spearheading it anyways. I'm going to keep moving forward. And so what happened is doors kept opening because that is the energy that's the output I'm pushing, right? So people are opening doors for me because I'm just really proactive. And what happened was, as I started doing the hard money lending, that was really a niche. I ended up working with a group called Armando Montalongo, which is the guy who started the fix and flip like reality TV show. Is the Hispanic guy out of Texas that had the big Hummer, the H1 or whatever H2 it was. Yeah. And that was the very first reality TV show of flipping properties. And he ended up opening up a coaching system. And I tapped into the coaching system, and he was charging people $60,000 just to go through their coaching to learn how to flip properties.
Oh, wow.
Well, I was the hard money lender associated to that entire group, and he had 300 people on bus tours every quarter. So I was just literally just reeling them in by establishing that relationship. Yeah. So over time, as doors open and deals would come across my desk, I had zeros on them. And as I continued to build relationships with different, outfits and people and money sources, I just kept trying to push deals through. And that's just how I kind of learned. I just would just take a deal on and try to make it work with my existing network. Yeah. I wasn't shy to call people and go, hey, I have this $50 million project that needs funding. Do you know anybody who would do it? Yeah. And those people will call this group or call that group or whatever. And I get closer and closer to closing these bigger deals. So over time, I just kept pushing myself forward. And now we actually launched one of the most successful crowdfunding companies in the country. 95% of all crowdfunding companies fail on year one. We're into year 5. Yeah. We ended up not only raising capital for other people's projects, but we started developing our own projects because we can control our decisions, not other people's decisions. Right. We've done probably $3 billion in projects. That's not including the people that sit on my board, and their track record. That's just on my side. Yeah. And we funded a bunch of homes on the show $1 Million Listing in LA. That opened up doors for me. And as I started building relationships through social media and solicitation rules from the SEC changed, I was able to mass solicit for people who wanted to invest and benefit on commercial real estate investments and returns. And so as I was just literally knee deep with all the escrow, title, real estate agents, investors, developers, I was having deal flow on my desk all the time. And so I'm sitting there going, well, shoot, man, I was the number one producer in the country for 4 years straight. Number one in California for I don't know how many years, but in the state I was, or in the country I was. And that really helped, kind of build the PR around my ability to do more deals. But that's what kind of got us to where we are today. So now we have, roughly $500 million under management, which is about $1 billion in transactions or in projects. We have that $185 million winery that we're basically managing all the LP for and co-GPing with that developer. We have all of the storage and barn caves, which is our current project. We have our apartments in San Antonio, our project. We did our townhomes in Denver. We have a lot of stuff that we've done over the last 3-4 years. And we're very lucky, but man, we just aren't going to stop. We're going to keep pushing forward.
Yeah, like it's crazy how fast you're doing multiple giant projects at the same time, and you're like flying left, front, right, and center to make it happen.
Yeah, just our storage projects right now, we have about 750,000 square feet being developed.
Oh wow!
And that's boat and RV storage man caves. We're the largest man cave developer now in the country.
You're putting a gym there too?
We're putting it. So yeah, we're doing kind of like the whole lifetime fitness.
Yeah,
the big lifetimes.
Yeah,
we're kind of doing their movement. What people don't know is what they are actually are a family office that builds apartments. And what they did, which I think is absolutely brilliant, is, as you know, a lot of apartment projects or companies or complexes, they have like little gyms and pools and all that stuff, right? Well, that's dead space. You're not actually making money on that. You use that as a tool to try to get people to rent there. That's only like an amenity. And it comes inside your rent. So your cost to manage a pool and keep it clean all goes into the rent. Well, what if you eliminated the pool and the gym at these complexes and just built a Lifetime Fitness across the street? Because if you had a Lifetime Fitness across the street, you're not going to your little complex gym or their pool. You're 100%. Going over there, dude. That gym is way cooler, right? So that's what they did. So they were very smart. They maximized every inch of the property or lot where they were building apartments. They just built nothing but units. And then across the street, they built a gym.
That's like next level thinking.
Well, it's a private equity play. They separated it. And what they did was so like for you to get cheap capital, right? Let's say, for example, right now we're looking at building on 60 acres in Lake of the Ozarks.
Yeah.
And I'm going to build 2 500,000 square foot buildings where I'm going to do a master lease to like Kroger, Walmart, Target for cold storage for groceries.
Yeah.
Well, if I go to a bank and I say, well, I got Kroger that's going to give me a 50-year lease with a 4% increase per year for the next 50 years, the bank's going to go, well, that's guaranteed income. It's a triple net tenant.
Yeah.
It's like, so if you go and you say, okay, I'm going to build this huge gym with a proven track record and, they have all these, we got $1 billion in the bank and then the likelihood of getting a loan is much greater. So now you can separate it and do, okay, well, I'm going to build my apartments and I'm going to maximize every square footage of that property. So I'm going to debt service easily the loan I'm going to get from the bank. And then I'm going to come over here and build this gigantic gym, which is way more attractive that anybody that lives across the street is just going to walk across on the other side to go to this amazing gym. And so when they go to get the loan for the gym, because of how big and they have a proven track record, they can say, well, out of the 1,000 units that we're building, 65% of those tenants are going to pay for a gym membership. So now that's guaranteed income. It's like saying I got Kroger as my tenant or I got Walmart as my tenant, right? You can guarantee. And so that's what they did. And they just did 2 different entities in essence, built their apartments and then built a gym across the street. And it's brilliant. And we're doing the same thing.
And that's the thing you mentioned earlier about you being able to see into the future while other people have not.